In this video, we're going to go over inequality equations, but before we do, we need to kind of go over how to write interval notation specifically, and then we'll also write inequalities. That's really not as important, but we really want to focus on that interval notation. So our first example says express the graph shown using interval notation, also express it as an inequality involving x. So what we need to understand here, when this is shaded, we've got -1 to 2. When this is shaded like this, it's not just including the numbers -1, 0, 1, and 2. It is including every single little number in between. So it's all of these little numbers. So it's not just 0.5, it's also 0.6 and 0.7 and 0.8 and 0.88 and 0.889 and 0.88889 and so on. It's every infinite number in between these. So I cannot just list that this solution here is only -1, 0, 1, and 2, because then you're skipping every possible infinite number in between. And so that's where interval notation becomes really handy. When I write this in interval notation, I can say this is -1 to 2. I'm putting parentheses here because my graph is also giving me parentheses. And what those parentheses represent is that those numbers are not included. So like this 2, it goes up to 1.9 and 1.99 and 1.999, 1.9999999, keep going forever, but it will never ever actually reach 2. 2 is not included. And so when I write this in interval notation as -1 to 2, it means I'm not including -1 or 2, but I am including every possible number in between those two. Okay, and then my inequality would be -1 is less than x, which is less than 2. This side over here always makes sense. You've got x is less than 2, meaning it's going this way, right? And then this one here, kind of read it backwards. This means x is greater than -1, and so it's going everything over here. And so now it's sandwiching these between these two numbers, just like this is here. And we're using both with a less than symbol and not less than or equal to, because again, that -1 and that 2 are not included. And I know that because we're using parentheses here instead of brackets. These two answers here are describing this same graph, just in different ways. Okay, so same thing over here. When you're using interval notation, I mean, literally just use this and write it the way it looks. We're going from -1 and it's got a parentheses. We've got parentheses -1, comma, and it's going to 1, and this one has a bracket. So 1 bracket. So this means we have every number in between -1 and 1, where -1 is not included in our solution set because of that parenthesis, but 1 is included because of that bracket. And then the inequality here would be -1 is less than, because again, parentheses, it's not included, is less than x, but this time is less than or equal to 1 because this bracket includes that 1. Both of these are considered compound inequalities. Let's go inequalities. Okay, because they have the two solutions that are containing our solutions. Okay. And the other thing I want to, well, actually two things I want to make note. This looks like an ordered pair because of the parentheses, but it is not. So it is not -1 for your X and 2 for your Y. And also notice over here that it is okay for these symbols to not match. So it is okay for one to be a parenthesis and one to be a bracket. They can both be brackets, they can both be parentheses, or you can have one of each. You're not limited there.